Hey everybody, welcome to Hit Rewind. We are back into the year 1997. We are discussing the comic books of that year, the big events, the debuts, and other stuff in the Major 2 and the Independents. I'm Michael, and that's John on the other side.
Hey, it's John. How you doing?
John always covers Marvel. I cover DC and Independent, so he is going to launch this episode. Go!
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I do think I need to print a correction. Like in the last comic show, I believe I said that Wolverine got his metal skeleton back in like this issue 100, where he was getting his Cable Shitty son Tyler basically was trying to turn him into a new Horseman because, you know, Cable and Apocalypse, all that bullshit.
Yep.
You know, that sort of stuff. Well, I misremembered things, and I was between the time that we recorded this show and the previous one, I basically read all the X-Men stuff. And Wolverine doesn't get his skeleton back then. It's going to be an event like in the next 2 years or so that we'll end up talking about.
Okay.
So I'm wrong. I'm bad. All of you people who never posted anything on the internet correcting me, you should really feel ashamed of yourselves for not calling me out on my bullshit.
Yeah, it's been a year. I think they're fine. Or nearly a year.
Anywho, okay. The Thunderbolts actually debuted in 97. They started off in an issue of Incredible Hulk, and a series would shortly follow. Now, this is, of course, now the Marvel Universe where a lot of our heroes are presumed dead. And they're often Heroes Reborn, and that was a piece of crap. But there's now this gap for a huge Avengers-like team. Enter the Thunderbolts.
Uh-huh.
And they are these superheroes. They're going to be so awesome. And then you get to the last page, and you discover they're actually the group, the Masters of Evil.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you're following this team of villains masquerading as heroes. And what's kind of neat about it is some of the villains actually want to become heroes, because it's kind of nice to have people liking them for a change.
Yeah, I really liked the series. I thought it was going great. I really thought it was interesting when they added Hawkeye to it. I don't know what, like 40 issues in or something like that, because Hawkeye himself was a what do you call it?
He's a reformed villain.
Yes, thank you, reformed. So it was a really interesting take. What I'm confused by, just like with the way it is with Marvel Knights, is. Or no, it's the Defenders. Where those aren't the Defenders, and those aren't the Thunderbolts. You know, whenever they bring them to cinema, it's just not what I thought that they were going to do.
As time went along, basically the Thunderbolts effectively morphed into the Marvel version of DC Suicide Squad.
Yeah, which it's not the point. That's always bothered me when they're like, "Well, we got to adapt. We got to do our version of this." It's like, but you already had your thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, the problem with doing the Thunderbolts in the MCU is that, I mean, yeah, if you're going to do this, we don't really have too many villains that are alive that could do this. So, yeah, you're kind of having to create alternate Avengers. And even then, looking at that, I'm thinking, I mean, technically you're really creating the Dark Avengers from the Dark Reign event.
Yeah, definitely.
But anywho, this is actually a pretty cool series, as you said too. It's a lot of fun, and there are variations of the Thunderbolts that are pretty good. There's some in that Suicide Squad era that are neat, and then there's other ones like the one with Red Hulk and Punisher and Elektra. That's not as good.
Usually the core group that it starts off with is usually the one that we're most comfortable with. Like, you know, New Warriors, you really only recognize the first group. It's interesting though when like say the Justice League or the Avengers, nobody has a problem when new people are added to the Avengers. They just aren't. It's always been that way. And like Justice League, they've always had like a weird mixture, but people tend to go back to the core. You know, the core, which are not the original Justice League members, by the way.
No, not at all.
I'll discuss that because that's coming up. The reboot is this year, I believe. But go ahead.
Okay, but yeah, it's like one of the things I really liked about this book was it took this pretty shitty villain, Screaming Mimi,
Yeah.
and reformed her into the hero Songbird. and she's a far more interesting character now than she ever was in her past.
Yeah, it's like with Captain America when they did that with Diamondback. When Diamondback was part of the Serpent Society, she wasn't that interesting, but when she decided to go with Captain America and try to be a hero, that's when she became interesting.
Yeah, it's always kind of fun to have when you have a villain become, a good guy for at least even temporarily. It gives you a chance to actually explore them.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else happened? Marvel Flashback. During July, there were a whole bunch of these number zeros that happened, which are a whole bunch of these untold stories set in the past of whatever that book would be.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are pretty good, some of them are not, but they all had Stan Lee kind of like introducing everything, and it was kind of a neat gimmick, but basically it really was there to give Marvel a buffer zone to get things set up for the Heroes Reborn end.
Right.
Which, speaking of which, Heroes Reborn, like it's already said, is not good.
Nope. Heroes Return isn't bad, though. I liked Heroes Return.
Well, that's because it was written by, I think, Peter David, as opposed to Liefeld and all those other people.
Yeah.
But to remind everybody, basically, this Heroes Reborn spun out of the X-Men event Onslaught. Basically, possessed Charles Xavier, becomes a huge supervillain, blows up New York mostly, and really pisses off everybody. The Avengers go off and they team up with the X-Men, and all the Avengers, most of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, go off to fight Onslaught and disappear. They all die.
Yeah.
Not really, because Franklin Richards created a pocket, the little Muppet child of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman. He creates a pocket universe, this alternate world where they had all these new comics running through. And basically the Celestials decide that this is not a good thing and pretty much threaten to destroy the entire this entire alternate world. All the heroes are allowed to evacuate. Shenanigans happen, but ultimately everybody's back where they're supposed to be. Yay! We never have to talk about this event again.
Captain America and his big old weird mutated chest. No, thank you.
I tried. I genuinely did try reading all that stuff, and I could not get into it.
No, I do remember when it came back, though. I was really into the reboot of Iron Man. The Sean Chen, I'm going to say it was Busiek? Busiek? How do you say his name?
Busiek.
I can't remember. But yeah, that's the Marvel is really in the doldrums right now. Comics in general are suffering, so it's not exactly the best year. But Marvel, I think this is when they hit bankruptcy, right?
Yeah, this is around the time.
Yeah. Where
they ended up starting to sell off all their characters for film rights and whatnot, just so you keep their doors open. It's... before going to this event, like things like Marvel had Iron Man become a teenager.
Oh yeah, shit.
Because his contemporary version became a villain and was killed, and it's like they really wrote themselves into a corner.
Oh there. Yeah, well yeah, it's like I feel like they're almost doing that now, where they're running out of ways to go, but they really hit a fucking wall back then, man. Just like. I'm trying to think. They killed Punisher after making him a black guy, and then turning him to a ghost, I think, soon after this. Fantastic Four, I don't remember. All I remember is the Thing got really bumpy. He's more Rocky than ever. And then, didn't we suffer through when it was Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Hulk, and Spider-Man for like 5 issues or something like that?
Yeah,
Marvel's
that
really...
was earlier 90s.
Yeah, who else got rebooted? Captain America was a werewolf for a while.
Yep, that happened.
I don't remember anything. Who were the four reborn? It was Iron Man, Captain America, Fantastic Four, and Thor. Was Thor?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So the Hulk was not part of that.
Thor was lost for a little while, but it all worked out.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering because I was trying to remember all the titles. I swear there was another one, but I could be wrong.
Well, it was the Avengers. Basically, was what got rebooted, and there was a few of the characters like you had. Oh God, Crystal. I'm not going to remember them. Never mind. I was going to try and say them, but nope.
Never mind. Okay, what's next?
Okay, Deadpool actually gets his own first solo series.
Yay! I love the original, like the first 24 issues that Joe Kelly wrote. Well, maybe Joe Kelly stayed around longer, but Ed McGuinness was the original artist, and it was really fun and silly, and the art was amazing and cartoonish. And it still had like some heart underneath all of it. And I think this is when Deadpool finally started to connect after a few tries.
Well, that's just it. It's like, as much as Fabian Nicieza was the person who really kind of was setting up what Deadpool was kind of about, regardless of what Liefeld thought he was supposed to be. As much as, he was kind of responsible for creating a tone for the character, it's basically Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness are the ones who really defined what Deadpool is now. That fourth wall breaking, not just a merc with a mouth, but a funny merc with a mouth.
Yeah, and they built up his cast. They gave him the blind lady that he lived with them and her dog, and it's not Microchip. That's Punisher's character. Who is the
you had Weasel
Weasel?
And all the other members of that group.
It was like
St. Agnes or whatever.
Yeah, it was like the bar with no name in the Captain America Scourge story, except they were all assassins and very competent.
That's one thing. The movie, you basically see what that bar is. Like, a lot of those characters in that bar are effectively the characters from the comic.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of independent issues that actually are kind of cool. Generation X-31. We finally learned what secret Monet has been hiding this entire time. You've had this character who's basically perfect in every way, except every now and then she just kind of starts acting a little childish, or she's distant, and it was chalked up to autism because that's how we don't understand mental illness, so we're just going to say, oh no, this person's autistic. And well, what it turns out is, Monet St. Croix? No, M is not this person. She is actually her two sisters, basically stacked up one on top of each other with a raincoat over them, pretending to be an adult.
What? Holy shit.
Yeah, and it ends up turning out that this weird red girl named Penance that's been hanging around and totally mute, that's actually Monet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember reading it. I read maybe the first 15, 20 issues. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, that's, like I said, 31 issues. And that's been 31 issues, plus 4 issues of Generation Next from the Age of Apocalypse, plus 3 or 4 issues of the Phalanx Covenant. All have been leading up to this moment. So that's quite a few years. That's 4 years of setup for a very bizarre payoff. And now this issue is going to tie into what I'm going to talk about next, and that's X Factor 130. So, in the background of a lot of these comics, there's been I'm talking Marvel-wide, there's been an election coming up. And Graydon Creed, I think he's a leader of the Friends of Humanity. He's the son of Sabretooth and Mystique. He's been running on this staunch anti-mutant platform. He's openly bigoted about this. And in X Factor 130, he gets assassinated.
Yeah, okay, I remember this now. I didn't realize the X Factor went so far. I thought they ended early hundreds issues, not 130. Right? How much longer did it go after this?
It went another 20 or so issues or so, something like that. I think it's I actually will say, I think it goes 119. I think they stop right before 150.
Okay.
If I remember right. But, so he gets assassinated, and it looks like Mystique has done it. And this leads into the truly fully kickstarting a thing called Operation Zero Tolerance.
Yeah, I don't know the storyline. By this point, I'm out, I think.
Oh, yeah, I was not reading comics when this happened, but over the course, throughout Onslaught, even right before Onslaught, we've had this little background thing happening where a guy named Bastion, very dapper looking fellow, kind of looks like a more angular Magneto, honestly.
Okay.
He's off in the background talking to people, doing stuff, mentioning this thing called Operation Zero Tolerance. And it's going to be the way to stop mutants once and for all.
Oh, no, I remember Bastion. I'm looking at a picture now. You know what? I actually think I did read during this time because I remember Lobdell was writing. I was a big fan of his. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So, yeah, he's been cozying up to these people, foreign governments and whatnot. And so, onslaught happens. All the popular heroes that people like are killed by those evil, filthy mutants. So, anti-mutant hysteria is really rising. And now that Great and Creed has been killed, holy crap, this is the perfect time to do it.
Yep.
Professor X has been arrested, and he's now under Operation Zero Tolerance sway. The people are being, volunteering themselves for something they don't know what, and it turns out they're becoming sleeper agent sentinels. And shit just kind of goes bad, because Bastion pretty much attacks the X-Mansion. He pretty much, everything just happened. Like, it's a full frontal attack. If you've seen the X-Men 97 cartoon,
I have not.
The last 3 episodes are sort of a adaptation of this event.
Oh, okay.
But basically, it's just the X-Men are pretty much just on attack at all sides. Just every single group is being attacked by these people. There's sleeper agents everywhere. It's some bad shit.
So the show's good. I'm hearing really good things.
Oh, the show's amazing.
Yeah, I never really watched the original one. I watched a little bit of it, but I just I didn't stick around.
Yeah, it works as both a continuation, and if you've never seen X-Men before, they give you a nice little recap, and that's it.
Oh,
that's
good.
all you need. But basically, this guy, Bastion, we've discovered, is actually a version of he's the Nimrod Sentinel from the future, mixed with the formerly giant Sentinel pooping machine Master Mold.
Did you say Sentinel pooping?
Yes, I did. That's basically what he does. And these two things basically got fused together. I'm not going to go into why or how, but they became this dude. And now he's basically going out, turning people into Sentinels without their real consent, because they don't know what they're actually volunteering for.
Well, that sounds like in DC during Infinite Crisis when they had the whole OMAC thing. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, S.H.I.E.L.D. starts to step in because Zero Tolerance doesn't seem to care about, anything really beyond killing mutants. So there's a lot of damage that they cause and everything. So S.H.I.E.L.D. ultimately has to step in. They arrest Bastion. X-Men get three new members because so many people are not necessarily dead, but scattered to the winds. So we're given Maggot, the guy who's blue and has a digestion system on the outside in the form of these really crazy slugs.
Yeah, you know what? I definitely did remember reading this because Maggot seemed like such a useless character.
He's weird. I don't know if I like the character or not. He's not around for very long, so... But you had Cecilia Reyes, who's a doctor who gets outed during this time, and she's really pissed off. She doesn't want to be a superhero. She doesn't necessarily like the fact that she's even a mutant, but people know that she is now. Now her career is ruined. She apparently can't be a doctor anymore, so fuck it, I'm part of the X-Men. Yay. And you also have the former Morlock Marrow.
Okay, I was wondering if Marrow was part of this. They were a little obsessed with Marrow.
Well, that was the thing. Marrow started out interesting as being this basically almost a serial killer mutant character from a thing called Gene Nation. I think I talked a little bit about it in one of the previous shows. If not, don't worry. It's a lot. But she was very, like, one of these characters who was very ugly. Like, by design, she's got bone sticking out everywhere. But, she pulled... If you played the game Marvel vs. Capcom 2, you've seen her.
Yeah.
Because she can basically pull bones from her body and they become like knives and stuff. Interesting, weird-looking character, and over time, they just pretty her up quite a bit. It feels kind of weird because, really, she shouldn't be pretty. She's an ugly fucking character, and, it's a nice contradiction to, contrast where you start having a character who's ugly on the outside, but you start discovering that he actually does have a lot more on the inside. And, like, in a more direct thing as opposed to, oh, Beast, he looks like a big fluffy animal. Oh, but he's also smart and erudite and all that stuff. That's, sure, let's do the extreme version of that. But, honestly, that's really about it for stuff that happened in Marvel. Because, they were just dealing with Heroes Reborn at that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, it was a real rough year. The comic stores are shutting down. Marvel has now filed for bankruptcy, and I feel like this is the year where it's a real test of whether the independents they have a shot of taking over or not. And I would say the problem with the independent comics a lot of the times, especially if the Image ones, was accountability. And a lot of these creators, the accountability just went off the fucking rails, which brings me to talking about Cliffhanger. Look, Cliffhanger, when it started, everybody was so fucking jazzed. This was the next wave of big artists that were leaving the major two, like it was 5 years earlier. It was J. Scott Campbell, and he was doing Danger Girl. Humberto Ramos was leaving Impulse and starting Crimson. And then Joe Madureira, who was probably the biggest of the three, and he was fucking tearing it up on Uncanny X-Men, and he started Battle Chasers. I feel like there's a fourth one in there that I can't remember. But Danger Girl, I'll give him credit. It was never intended to be, like, wrapped up. It was always one of these, like, hey, this miniseries or this little thing is just an adventure. It's a girl version, kind of like if you took G.I. Joe comics and made Scarlet the main star and stuff like that. That's what you're getting with Danger Girl. It was cheeky, it was fun, it was at the right time, because Austin Powers had just hit it big, so spies and international kind of stuff was big. Crimson did wrap up. It was only 2 years long. It was pretty good. It was about a teenage vampire, and the one that I think it just pissed everybody off was Joe Madureira's Battle Chasers. Fucking hell. Like, first 6 issues, fine. There's a little delay in issue 7. Oh, there's a long delay in issue 8. Holy shit, are we ever getting 9? I think it stopped at maybe 10? And then he decided, I'm going to go work on video games. Well, you fucker. Just finish this. Just figure out a final story. And I honestly do not know, 25 years later, if he ever finished that.
There were Battle Chasers comics not that long ago.
Really? So maybe he stopped getting hired by video game companies and I had to go get some more work?
Probably. Well, I mean, I know he had done later X-Men stuff too. So.
Yeah, and J. Scott Campbell, I don't think has ever gone back to a regular series. He, like Michael Turner, were doing bang-up jobs on covers. That's what they did a lot of covers, and that's how they make their money.
Yeah, it's like I see a lot of alt covers from J. Scott Campbell. I really like his manga style. It's really fun.
Oh, that's right. The other one was called Steampunk from Joe Kelly and Chris Bachalo. Well, I don't remember Out There, which was Humberto Ramos's other title after Crimson ended. Actually, there's more here than I ever knew. I really thought that it fucking died on the vine real quick. It says High Roads by Scott Lobdell. Aerosmith by... Okay, I know Aerosmith by Kurt Busiek. That was fairly popular, but I think that just moved straight over to just Image. The Possessed by Jeff Johns and Kamikaze. I'd never even heard of any of these, but yeah, those first 3 were really the ones that set the tone, and I think it just pissed people off because it wasn't staying regular at all.
Yeah, and that's how these things live or die, especially smaller companies. If you can't produce the work, no one's gonna stick around for it.
I wonder if any of these hold up. I did read Crimson a few years ago. It wasn't that bad. But I remember everybody was insane about Battle Chasers. And a lot of it was because, yes, the anime style, but also one of the main characters had boobs the size of fucking Jupiter. And,
Yeah, I was debating if I was going to mention anything about that being. I was attracted to. I never had. Did I ever have a comic of Battle Chasers? I don't think I ever did, but I definitely had ads from it. I saw those things every now and then, and yeah, that's some interesting artwork.
There was literally 22 years between issues 9 and 10, and there's never been another one after that.
Jesus.
That's just fucking crazy. I don't know what to tell you about that. But yeah, that was a big deal for a brief moment, and then everybody just like, nope, moving on. I think that's why the big two regained a foothold, is even with all their stupid mistakes, the fact that they were regular and they fed that fix, that you needed monthly.
Yeah, it also helped that they stopped doing a lot of the big gimmicks and things.
Yeah.
That really helped.
Liberty Meadows debuts. Nobody really remembers this because Frank Cho kind of broke out later when he joined Marvel. But for years, Liberty Meadows was really testing the grounds, like Boondocks, of what you could do in a Sunday comic strip. And like that, they both went over to another medium or a different way of publishing his stuff. Frank Cho started off in newspapers, and then about halfway through its run, he got tired of the restrictions, and then he just started publishing it as a comic book, and then Image decided to collect it all up and put it out. I really think it's fantastic artwork.
It is.
I like his superhero stuff, but I really love his Pogo inspired, but also like has feel of Bloom County, and if you remember U.S. Acres, which was a spinoff of Garfield. It has a lot of that feel, but it's more sophisticated, I think, in its storytelling, and I think it's just really fucking funny. And it's basically like an Alcoholic Anonymous kind of thing for animals in rehab. Some of them are paranoid, some are drunk, stuff like that.
That poor duck who it just like he was in a ocean liner not ocean liner crash, but what is it, like the Valdez, one of those things, like an oil tanker crash.
Yeah, when he got covered in oil.
Yeah, and he's got all this PTSD and
that was another one where I don't think they ever finished it. I was concerned because they leave it on a cliffhanger, but I didn't realize that a year later, after the regular series ended, that he did a wedding album special that wrapped up the story. So I got to go find it because I have the whole series.
Yeah, it's like the question is, do you have the whole series? Do you have University Square?
I don't have University Square, you're correct. I don't have this Sunday. I just realized I don't have the Sunday strips either because there's a book with those. I just have the regular reprints of the comics, which they skipped a lot of it.
Yeah, that's how I came to know of it first, was a guy I worked with back. Remember when there were bookstores, kids? I worked at one of them. A guy that I worked with was a big fan, and he let me borrow University Square and some of the original, very early printings and stuff. So yeah, I've got some of the books as well now, and some of the issues as well.
At the same time, this does have a small cult following around it, but there was another one that I was a big fan of, and it was called Desperate Times. It was also a Sunday comic style. It was from Chris Elio. I'm not going to say the name right. Eliopoulos or something like that. He was the letterer for Eric Larson on Savage Dragon, and he published like 6 of his issues, and then came back a year later. And it's just about, it's kind of like Garfield in a way. It's just about 2 guys in their early 20s that are single and just trying to get through, early adulthood and trying to be like grown men, and they have little sidekicks with them. And I thought it was a lot of fun.
I'm not aware of this one.
Yeah. The only other thing he did besides that is he went to do the Franklin Richards miniseries. He did like 2 or 3 of them where they're more kid-oriented. So his art style is very Calvin and Hobbes-like.
Yeah, when you mentioned that, I went, it's like immediately that style. Even before you said Calvin Hobbes, when you said that, I went, okay, I know exactly what it would look like.
Yeah. Ghost World comes out. Doesn't really hit big as a comic. It does, of course, have its following because, oh my God, why can't Daniel Klaus? Had already established himself a bit, but I think what most people know is just like the next thing I want to talk about is the movie version of it. I did want to bring it up because there was a time, kids, when people would adapt things that didn't have superheroes into movies.
Yeah, that's kind of how we got our comic book movies. Where really, they were these indie and alternate comics.
Yeah, I mean, if you look after Batman, you would really think that every single studio would have lined up the way it did after Iron Man. It didn't. We had superhero-ish movies, but they were more old school or comic strip, just like the same thing that happened after Superman. Is we got Dick Tracy, Rocketeer, which is a very small independent comic. Trying to remember, it goes that, then there's the Shadow in there somewhere, the Phantom.
Yeah, the Shadow and Phantom, not necessarily comic book characters.
Yeah, I mean, there has been comics of them, but that's not where they started. That's not their core. It's the books and the radio show and stuff like that.
But there was like Barbed Wire.
Yep, I was gonna say Barbed Wire, The Mask, Time Cop, Men in Black. And of course, somewhere in there you'd have another Batman movie just to keep it going along. I feel like there's a few others in there.
Mystery Men came from Flaming Carrot.
But it's like Blade was like the first, we can do a superhero movie if we kind of modify it. But then, like, The Matrix and stuff like that, X-Men. The Matrix is essentially a comic book movie, just not based on a comic book.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just interesting, like, that's the way it was back then with independent comics. Over in DC, we have Transmetropolitan debuting, which I think is a very fondly remembered Vertigo title.
It's so good. It is such a good series.
Yeah, I've read maybe the first 2 or 3 books. It's so heads above everything else that was going on at that time. Is Vertigo around? I think we discussed it did make a brief comeback.
Vertigo is gone now.
Okay.
It is DC's Black Label.
Oh,
now.
Okay. Yeah, we just need stuff that's not superhero based, more mature, to let your creators breathe without having to go, fuck you, I'm taking this shit to an independent where I can, it's just, I don't know what to tell you.
That's what I liked about Vertigo at this point is it's not necessarily what DC Black Label is, where it's just dark, hey, it's the mature version of our DC characters.
Yeah.
It was the alternate to Image and stuff.
Yeah, it was about a reporter in the future of this. He wasn't even like a mainstream reporter, right? He was kind of like on the edge, reporting stuff that no one else would touch.
He was effectively, he's Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah,
he's effectively Hunter S. Thompson of the future
in Fifth Element. Like, take those two and combine them.
Yeah, and just the thing is, he's not necessarily that he wasn't an offbeat reporter. He was very much a political reporter, but he got too close to things, and that's why when you start the series, he's living off the grid, away from everybody. Is he doesn't want to have anything to do with politics or anything anymore.
Yeah, I remember Patrick Stewart really, really wanted to do a live-action version of the show, but of course, I think he was probably too old by that point. So.
Yeah, but even then, and at this point, he's too old as well. I would have loved to see Sam Jackson do it.
Oh, interesting.
Because, let's be honest, Sam Jackson is a man who can yell, and about 80% of what Spider Jerusalem does is yell. So you need a guy who can keep up just this pissed off level of energy, at all times, and that's very much in Sam Jackson's wheelhouse.
JLA is rebooted in a way. They want us to go back to the start to remember what it was like in the beginning with a JLA Year One. I think, with the exception of Batman Year One, this is the first time they've done it again. Now it's more common. They start doing it a bunch. But is this the first time since Batman Year One that they've done another series with, hey, let's go back to the beginning and kind of retell their origin?
I don't know, because when did Robin Year One happen?
I think it was way after this. I think it was like early 2000s.
Because Batman Year One, there was Batman Year Two.
Yeah, I know they did.
I think there's 3.
Yeah, year 2 was out by this point, but I don't know if Year 3 had happened.
Yeah, it's like I know they did a Robin at least,
but it was
maybe a Batgirl.
Yeah, they did. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But I think what had happened, like, is another one of those things where just like the original series ended and had to be rebooted, it kind of got off its focus and the series just kept getting watered down. And the cast was getting watered down because people were being taken out of it. I think it was like down to just Wonder Woman was the leader with a bunch of obscure weirdos and stuff like that, just like it was before with Aquaman and a bunch of obscure weirdos. So taking it back to its core, telling you all over with the original guys, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, Black Canary, Aquaman, and The Flash. I feel like Green Arrow was in there somewhere, but I think maybe he came later. Retelling the origin, and then January, the second the year started, January of '97 is when Grant Morrison relaunches JLA with the Big Seven and Plastic Man.
Oh, Plastic Man, he never gets a break.
Yeah, but I really thought that was an interesting take, and I thought he was a pretty good character. Of course, the cast would expand later, like they added Green Arrow, I think in issue 8 or 9 when they're fighting Prometheus, but kind of making the stories really huge. No generic throwaway repetitive stuff. Whatever Grant Morrison had in his head was madness, and I enjoyed every fucking second of it because unlike a lot of the really heady writers, I can get where he's going. It's a little bit above me, but I'm not lost.
Yeah, that happens until he decides that he's just going to go off the rails.
Well, I thought it was great the whole way through, even through World War III.
Well, no, I'm not going to knock him for his JLA run.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I'm just talking Morrison in general.
Yeah,
he's good until he thinks he's more clever than he actually is.
We 3 was weird.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought at first I was thrown off by Howard Porter's artwork. His artwork can be kind of ugly, but it's a very unique style, and he captures things that a lot of artists really couldn't capture and get across. But there are some times when he's drawing a face, you're like, ugh!
Yeah, there's lots of well-respected artists, and yet sometimes you'll be like, I get why you like it, but I can't do this.
Yeah.
That's Bill Sienkiewicz for me. I totally understand why people love it.
Deodato. There's times when Deodato knocks it out of the park so hardcore. Here's the one that I never got. This is a little bit off the subject matter, but we have hardly an episode here. Mark Bagley. I don't get the appeal, and yet he was a phenomenon. I think it's because he worked super fast. But people seem to like him. I just don't like the way he draws. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm fine with him. I think my biggest gripe is John Romita Jr.
I can see that. That's a very, very particular style. That hard lines.
He can be very good on stuff. There are times that I think that it can work very well, but I'll say that's 20% of the time. The other 80, I can't look at his stuff. It's so fucking ugly.
Yeah.
Like he's got a style very similar to his old man's. And his old man's is very good for its time, but I would not really want to read a contemporary comic book done in even like John Romita style.
Yeah, well, I was thinking Sal Buscema. Seemed like he and his father John were kind of in that vein too, a little bit more like Romita. But they eventually evolved to a point where it wasn't so hatchline and ugly, weird, misshapen bodies a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's see. If we're at Artist's Corner right now...
I can't draw shit, so I'm going to shut the fuck up, I guess. I didn't really...
No, if you got what else you got, if you got any
That's
more.
it. It's a bare minimum year. It's scratching the bottom there. Sorry.
Yeah, that is the thing. I genuinely was trying to go through... I went through my Marvel Unlimited thing, looking at every single comic that got released, and going... Is there something here to talk about? No.
It's going to get better next year, though. It really is. We're going to get Marvel Knights. We're going to get some DC interesting stuff like 1 Million and Young Justice, and the Titans are coming back. So stuff like that. It's going to pick up, but this is the year it's probably rock bottom because of all the bankruptcies and companies just like not knowing what to do.
Exactly.
All right, that is it, everybody. Thank you so much, John, for this episode.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody, we're out.
Hey, see you.